Welcome back to Fresh Food Therapy. This episode, we're going to take what we learned in My Heart is Red, and we're going to take that plain red sauce and kick it up a notch. This one's called It's All Gravy, Baby. Sundays when I was growing up were a family day. And one of my favorite memories is the whole clan getting together at Grandma's house for a huge feast. And Grandma would wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning and start the red sauce, which we called the Sunday gravy. Gravy is traditionally something that is considered a sauce that you put over meats or mashed potatoes that really builds in a little bit of flavor. But the reason why it's called the gravy is because it uses the drippings from the meat. So our Sunday gravy, the Sunday red sauce, is actually a gravy because it takes in all of the flavors of the meat that are cooked within the sauce, braised for hours, leaving you with super tender, super flavorful meat. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through this episode and we're gonna teach you how to make our favorite meatballs, sausage and spare ribs, to put into that red sauce and then braise until everything's perfect. Are you ready? So the first thing that we're gonna do is I'm gonna teach you how to make these amazing meatballs. Normally I try to keep recipes to just a few ingredients to keep them simple. There are some moving parts to this one, so I apologize in advance, but I promise I'll try to keep it as simple as possible. So what we have is we have some 80-20 lean hamburger meat. We've got a little bit of Progresso Italian breadcrumbs. We have Kraft blended Parmesan and Romano cheese. We've got regular salt. We have the black pepper. We have 2 eggs. We have some parsley, and we have some Italian seasoning. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna decide how many meatballs we wanna make. If you are making dinner for a family of 6, what I would suggest is plan on making it so that everybody has 1 sausage and 2 meatballs, so that should be more than enough. There should be leftovers even. So what we're gonna do is we have about 3 pounds of hamburger here. I'm gonna use about half of it. So the way that I measure is I take the amount of meat that I'm going to use, which is about half of this, and what I do is I eyeball about half of the volume of the meat that we're gonna use in breadcrumbs. So I'm gonna take about, I would say, 2.5 cups of breadcrumbs. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add in the cheese to about half of the amount of breadcrumbs. So 2 times, 1 time, half. Now that you have the breadcrumbs and the cheese together, we're gonna mix in the remaining dry ingredients. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take a little bit of salt and just coat it a little bit. I would say maybe 2 or 3 tablespoons. We're gonna take about a tablespoon of black pepper. We're gonna take Italian seasoning, which is a blend of many herbs, and we're going to add just a little bit of a sprinkle over the top. And then we're gonna add dried parsley. And I would put in about as much dried parsley as you did the herbs. Now that all the dry ingredients are together, what we're gonna do is we're gonna mix all of the dry ingredients. This blends everything together evenly so that all the flavors are even throughout. And once they're all mixed, we're gonna add in the hamburger. Once it's in, what we're gonna do is we're going to just blend it a little bit very lightly. We're not gonna overwork it. We're gonna just get it so that the meat is starting to break apart into little pieces and they're being coated with the breadcrumb mixture. It'll seem dry and kind of crumbly. Don't worry about it. You're gonna be just fine. This is exactly how it's supposed to be. Okay, after about 30 seconds, it should be pretty much well mixed in. It's kind of even. The breadcrumbs are still dry, and the mixture is a little dry. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna moisten it. And the way we do that is we're gonna take about 2 eggs. And what the eggs will do is they will add a little bit of binding to all of this. And we're going to start mixing it in. It's not gonna moisten it up too much, but it'll help mix in the breadcrumbs so that they're less dry and the mixture is more even and moist. Once the breadcrumbs have been absorbed completely into the mixture, we're gonna add a little bit of water. I would say just add enough to soften it up and make it moist. So I put about, I wanna say, 1/3 of a cup into this. And again, you don't wanna overwork the mixture, because if you do, the meatballs will be very, very dense, and that's not the way it's supposed to be. Now that the mixture is moist and ready, what we're gonna do is we're going to ball them into the sizes that you want. Now, if you have young ones and you want to make it accessible to them, you can make small meatballs. It also allows people to take as many as they want. You can have 3 or 4 on a plate. If you like them bigger, you can make 1 meatball out of the entire thing. Done. But that's not necessarily the best way to go, and it takes a while to cook all the way through. What I'm gonna suggest is find out what makes you the happiest. I usually do about a medium-sized ball, which is, I would say, maybe 4 ounces. And that allows me to take about 3 or 4 bites out of the meatball before it's gone. Again, what we're trying to do out of this is, if we're making this for dinner for 6, we would like to make 12 meatballs out of this. Work them in your hand, just make sure that they're blended, that there's no cracks, and then roll them and leave them alone. Let them be worked as little as possible. That will ensure that the meatballs are nice and moist and soft as they cook. So we balled up all of the mixture, and we now have 16 meatballs out of about 1.25 pounds of meat. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna prep it. Now, the sausage and the meatballs can be baked together. All you need to do is take a baking pan with a little bit of a lip, because there will be some oil. You're gonna Pam it so that it's easy to clean later. And we're just gonna lay the meatballs out so that they're evenly spaced so that they can cook all the way around. Now, my grandmother used to actually fry the meatballs in a frying pan on the stove, but that was labor intensive. You had to watch it, and it splattered. It really made a mess. So what I tried was I tried baking them, and it turns out that you get a beautiful product that works just fine without having to worry about the mess. So just preheat your oven to 350 degrees, and then what we're gonna do is we're literally gonna take these Johnsonville sweet Italian sausage, and we're just gonna lay them evenly on the plate as well. It's gonna take about 25 to 30 minutes to bake these off, and what you'll end up with is beautifully browned on each side. What you do is, halfway through the cooking process, you're gonna go in and you're just gonna turn them around so that the brown is down and the next side is cooking. So this is gonna go right into the oven. Okay, so while they're baking, what we're gonna do is we're going to actually prepare the spare ribs. Spare ribs came in a whole rack. There's no way you're gonna get around that. You're not gonna be able to probably buy them in a small set. You're gonna have to buy the whole thing. But you can cut half and freeze the other half. Or what I would do is just cook the whole thing off, because you're gonna end up eating it, I guarantee you. So what we do is we take the spare ribs, and we're going to lightly coat it with a little bit of Lowry's seasoned salt on both sides. Now that it's lightly coated, we're gonna cut it into pieces for frying. We're gonna brown them before we put them into the sauce, because what that will do is it will not only build in a little bit of flavor, but it'll actually make sure that they cook faster and it won't have to be as long in the sauce. Go ahead and feel where the bones are and then pick in between. And if you want, there's nothing that says you can't have 2 bones or more. So if you want larger pieces, feel free to cut them or trim them the way that you feel. So we'll leave these 2 together. What we're gonna do now is we're going to take the olive oil and we're gonna just put a little bit into the pan. And then we're going to lay the pork into the pan. And we get that beautiful sizzle already. It's gonna take some time. So what you're gonna do is you're just gonna wash it very carefully. And once they're in place, I would use one of the little splatter protectors. It's a pan cover that actually keeps the oil from splattering all over the place. Okay, for the meat, you're presently in the 7th inning stretch. What we're going to do is we're going to just turn the spare ribs and we're going to turn the meatballs and sausage so that you can see, and then we'll put them back in to finish them off. So let's start with the spare ribs. What you're gonna see is that it's starting to brown on the side that's in contact with the heat. This is perfect. And then we're just gonna cook on the other side until they're completely browned on that side as well. For the meatballs and sausage, all we're gonna do is just turn. You'll notice that the meatballs are even browning all the way around. That's a perfect way to do this. The other way that we used to actually fry them in a fry pan was not only labor intensive, but it just was not a pretty effective way to do it. Sometimes you would burn one side of the meatball as you were waiting for them to turn. With the oven's heat all the way around, you end up with literally evenly cooked, tender, and moist meatballs. Okay, they're perfect, and we're gonna send them back in. Now, everything is perfectly browned and ready to go. All we need to do is take the red sauce that you learned how to make. It should have already been sauteing or the onions and the garlic, and then fill with, I would say, no more than 5 of the 28-ounce cans of the Pastene Kitchen Ready. But in the case of feeding 6 people, 3 to 4 of these should be plenty. What we're gonna do is we're gonna then take the sausage and the meatballs and we're gonna add it to the red sauce. For the record, we have 5 Italian sausages, 16 meatballs, and approximately 6 or 7 pieces of spare rib that are going into this. That should be more than enough to not only feed your 6, but to have leftovers for all parties involved. Because leftovers are actually the best part of this, aren't they? And we're left with beautifully browned, incredibly ready Italian spare ribs. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna make sure that they're underneath the red sauce, just so that they're covered, and then we're gonna put it into the oven at 350, and we're gonna bake it uncovered so that it richens up and becomes a little bit more thick over about 3.5 to 4 hours. So if you do this at 8 o'clock in the morning, and by the time you're done with the meatballs and the sausage and the spare ribs and the red sauce, you have it in at about noon. At about 4 p.m., you should be ready to serve dinner. The meat is complete, the sauce is ready, and we just boiled off about 1.5 pounds of penne rigata. So what we're gonna do is we're going to dress the pasta, and the way we're gonna do that is we're gonna take a little bit of the red sauce and we're gonna put it into the bowl to serve, to coat the pasta. What that will do is it will keep the pasta separate so that it's easier to serve, and it also flavor it a little bit so that you don't have to use as much sauce. Now 1.5 pounds is a significant amount of pasta. That's going to be enough for about 8 or 9 people. Generally, wisdom says that a pound of pasta is good for 6 to 8 portions. With this, because the meat figures in so heavily and is really going to be what everybody looks for and really enjoys seeing, you're going to have to put less pasta on the dish. So they're going to have more protein and less carbs on this pasta dish than what normally happens. You just have to be very, very careful and make sure that the pasta is coated evenly with the red sauce. Once the pasta is coated with the red sauce, you're ready to serve and everybody can eat together. All right, now we're ready. The main thing that you have to keep in mind is that this is a shared dining experience, which means everybody at the table is going to be eating together, and so there's no need to load up the plates. In fact, a smaller portion is better because there will be plenty to go back for seconds, and that keeps people from overeating, and it also makes sure that there's enough to go around. So what we're going to do is we're going to plate up, and what I would suggest is no more than 2 or 3 scoops of pasta. In fact, those 2 scoops should be more than enough pasta. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a meatball and a sausage to this plate. And we're going to top it off with just a little of the extra sauce in order to flesh out the dish. And that's a perfect way to start, because if you're having a big family meal, the chances are that you may have salad, you may have bread, you may have other things that are going to be going on that plate, and you don't want to be one and done. You want to extend the experience so that people can actually dine and enjoy each other's company over a longer period of time. It's now time for the family meal, and everyone sat and we're ready to go. We've made 6 plates, but we probably have enough, honestly, to feed another 4 or 5 people. If you are under 21, the best pairing beverage of choice for this meal is a little bit of orange soda. When I was destined to stay at the kid table until someone died in my family, this is generally what we were serving at the kid table. But if you're an adult, we have a dish here that has 3 different types of meat in it. So what are you going to pair with it? Well, humorously enough, why don't we go with a wine that's a blend of 3 different varietals. Now, Ménage à Trois is a very smooth, very rich drinking red that's inexpensive. It'll probably run you about $9 to $13 depending on where you are in the country. But it's a blend of Zinfandel, Merlot, and Cabernet blended together after they've been fermented separately. It's an incredibly smooth wine and it's wonderful for the table, and it'll go very, very well with this dish. I hope you've enjoyed these recipes. Now, what we're looking at here is about $65 worth of product that we had to buy for all of this. But you're looking at about half of the meat was used, so you can do another batch or a larger batch. So what you're looking at is this is about $7.50 to about $10 per person. When you add wine, it's probably no more than $12 per person to have a meal like this and to have as much as you can possibly eat. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we look forward to seeing you again on Fresh Food Therapy.